What's up? Welcome to Cozy Costume Creations. I'm Sarah Beth, and today I'm going to teach you how to do grommets using a grommet machine or grommet press, and I'm going to teach you how to do aglets. So, I've mentioned once before that I'm a professor. I teach an MFA program in costume technology and one in costume crafts, and so this is a little demo I was doing for a few of my students. So, yeah, join me for class.
All right, so this is a machine for doing this, so you don't have to do it by hand, the hammering technique, because when you hammer it, if you do it kind of the wrong angle, it can distort your grommet, and so you don't get as pretty of a look. So if you can, use the machine. It has something that's called a die set, so these are different pieces that are for the different sizes. This is for a size 0 grommet, so that's what we're going to use. You also want to look and see if you want to do a gold or a silver grommet. I'm going to use gold because that works well with what I'm doing, right? I could do silver, it would look good too, but that's my choice. So what I'm going to do is I have my piece, and I've marked ½ an inch down from this edge, ½ an inch over from this edge, and ½ an inch up from this one. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this accordion tool. This is a button gauge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it in between my ½ inch markings. And I want 4 grommets. I could see how many I could fit into here and be like, let's do this many grommets, right? But that'd be a lot because you want space in between them. And these are about 3/8 of an inch. So you'd also want to keep in mind how thick they are in the spacing, right? So I've decided that I want to do 4 grommets. So I can use this button gauge and kind of lay it out, and then mark the in-betweens of where I want it to go, right? So I've got my top and my bottom, and that means for equal spacing, my one goes here, my one goes here. So I basically have the center of this is where my grommets go, right? So I have this marked and ready to go, and this is where I'm going to put on my safety glasses, because I'm going to use an awl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to very gently, I guess I'm looking this side, I'm going to go through my holes. And you don't want to be too rapid about this. This is something you want to just kind of twist very gently. We're not punching holes. We're not trying to break fibers. The point of an awl is to kind of move the fibers around it. So you have your woven thread, and it's kind of making space in between so that your grommet can hug it really nicely. If you break the fibers, then you're more likely for these grommets to then rip out, which you don't want. So I'm going to twist really nicely. And if you just really gently do that, you're going to get a nice roll. I usually do break a fiber or two. It just happens. But I'm really trying, and I know that this is a good, like brocades tend to be a little bit looser woven. This is also why I used a non-woven interfacing for this part, because then it's going to be easier for me to do this here. And you can see, like, I don't know if I broke a single fiber. It's just like beautifully just like melted around it, right? You don't see any broken threads. Yes! Doesn't always happen that way. So I've made this hole. Now the side that is the pretty side of the grommet, the outside side is this side. So this is the piece of the grommet that has the little, and then we have the ring, right? That goes on the inside, that's the not pretty side. Now with these grommets, you have to beware. I always pull these out first and get some that are like the same. So I set aside all of my grommets first to make sure I can get the same ones, because not all these grommets are the same. So you can see how the color is different. You see that? So I always go through and pick out the ones that I want, so I don't have like, you see this one's much more brassy, shiny, this one's like dull and kind of, so I pull out the ones I want. The other thing is that there's 2 shapes of rings. There's this one that's much more donut-y, and there's this one that is less donut-y. Alright. So, we've got our grommet piece, and what you would typically do is I'm choosing this as my outside of my fabric, and I planned that for like where this was positioned. So that's my outside of my fabric, so that means I take this side, and that's going to go through this way, which which is also why I went from this side. It makes it a little easier. Now, the way that you're supposed to do this is you just use your fingers and your nails to like push that over. Have you guys done that? How long does it take? It takes forever. So here's the Sarah Beth cheat method. This is where I take my awl, and this only works with like this size awl and with this size. So this is not a like all the time thing, right? So I can take this and I just use it to get my fabric onto my grommet. Nice, nice. So now I can just slide it off. And I have my grommet in there. And instead of taking like 45 minutes, it took a few seconds. So this is my cheat method. It's not like academic practices. It's not like, so if you go to places, people look at you funny, but they'll also be like, that's brilliant. So hopefully, hopefully it works out. So now I take the other side of the ring, and I'm going to have the like more curved part of the donut, not like the indent. So the curved part is the outside, see? So this is the pretty side. This is not the pretty side, right? Not pretty side. Pretty side. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just stick this on top like that. And then I've written on this because every machine is different. So I've worked with machines where this has been opposite. And if you do it the opposite way, it gets stuck and then you have to like use pliers to pull it out and it's a hot mess. So I've written bottom ring. So the ring goes on the bottom and then top grommet. The grommet part goes on top, right? So I've written it on here for this machine so we don't have to like wonder every time. So now what I do is I put the ring facing in there. And then I take this and I pull it down once to get the position right. And then I put all my pressure into it. And this one I want to look pretty, so. Cool. Yes! Oh, there's such a good one. All right. And now I can feel that I got like a really good, like there's no wiggling around or anything. And it's really beautiful. I have no broken fibers in the middle. Those fibers are just moving around it. So yeah, the weave has just gone around the grommet and it's just hugging it. And this is going to be really secure for a really long time. Yay! So now we got it. All right, so this is a hole punch. And so with leather is different from a woven fabric, right? So I can't use my awl to push the fibers out of the way, right? Like I can't just like stick that in and do a thing. So this is also why there are like sharper awls, and they're used for this, and that's to punch like really tiny holes. So you can use a really sharp awl. However, when you're doing grommets, you do want to punch a hole. So there are different sizes of holes on these, right? And you can move the wheel. Let's see, it's got a direction it goes this way, so I need to push it the other way. So it has one direction that it spins to like change the size, right? So you can change it to whichever size. So you can look at your grommet, you can put it on top and say, that is probably the one that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spin to that one. Right? So that's my guy. That's the one. It's also the biggest, right? So our leather punches have like a piece of leather attached to them because you really want something underneath your piece to be able to like have enough tension to get a hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, and you might not have enough grip strength to do it, so sometimes you have to spin it, and sometimes you have to do multiple times. But I got a pretty good punch out of that, but still like not a hole, right? So sometimes at this point, that's where I'll grab some scissors and try to pull that guy out. Or I can probably get it with my fingers. Or this is also where like a sharper awl would come in handy, and I can kind of help like poke it out the rest of the way. I could also put it back on this and say, okay, one more time, let's try it without the leather backing underneath to get just that little bit extra. The twisting helps so I can like pull it off, right? Do. This is really brittle leather. It needs to be conditioned. All right, so now I've got my guy. And I would use scissors and like cut off that excess, right? But now that I have a hole, scissors. Now that I have a hole, I could stick my awl through. I could stick my awl through too. for sure. But this is where I can stick my grommet in and try and make that fit. And you could also just use scissors to cut this a little bit bigger to make it what you need, because I don't think that this hole punch is actually quite big enough. You probably want something slightly bigger than this. There are also alternate die sets. So you can take out, these are for setting the grommets, but there's also a hole punch. So you can put in the hole punch ones, and then you just stick this guy underneath and do the thing, and it punches a hole. So this is like the hand punch method. There are also hammer ones where you can, just like these, where there's like a by hand die set where you put down the thing, and then you can, it has a top piece and you hammer it into it and it cuts a hole that way. It's easier if you have the machine. So those are 3 options of how you can get the hole cut. So you do cut a hole because there aren't like, there's no threads to push aside. You have to cut a hole. And it's also leather, so it's like, I mean, it's like your skin, right? Like, if you want a hole in it, you have to punch a hole. Which doesn't have to go over your skin. I mean, earrings, I don't know, whatever floats your boat, but also, like, there you go. Anyway, so basically you have to punch a hole, right? So that's why we have sharp balls, and that's why we have hole punches. But that's also why you'll see sometimes people being like, I'm going to use this. And you have to be like, no, what are you doing? Because if I use my hole punch on this, what have I done? I've broken my threads! No! And then it's not going to be strong. It's going to wear out. It's going to rip out with some wear and tear, because this is a point of high tension, because I'm going to have lacing in between it. Wear and tear, rips out, sad day. Now I have to get a new one. All right, so you've got our grommets, and if they're all done, you have a total of 4 on this one, 4 on this one. I have 8. So this is going to be attached to this piece. And if I wanted, I could actually put it in the seam, which is where your belts go. So I could just throw it into the seam if I wanted. I like it better, and I think it's more period to have it as like a topical piece. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to kind of, if I had my spacing down exactly, I would measure it from there. But this is a little, we'll have a little bit of room for error, and that's fine. So to measure out my lacing, this is corset lacing. You can use corset lacing. You can use elastic in theater. We use that a lot. You can also use just any of the ropes or anything, right? There are a lot of options. So if you look at shoelaces, and this is elastic lacing, but if you have shoelaces, they'll tell you how long they are. And if it comes in the box, it'll have on the back like a map or like calculations of like, if you have 12 holes, this is how long you need it to be. So what they've done is they said, this is how far apart the hole is, so here's the distance we need in between, and then here's how much excess you need. So like the excess is kind of added into everything else. They've got like that number of like, here's how much you need extra to tie your bow and do your thing, right? So they have that number, and then based on the laces, the distance in between and the distance, so the distance in between the grommets and then the distance between the grommets this way, like both of those are calculated, right? So they calculate that for you, which is really great. So if you need to change out laces, you can look to the back of those, or you can look up a little measurement code, and it'll tell you. For corsets and other things, of course, there's no quick sheet method, right? It's going to be a little different. Usually for corsets, you want the gap in the back to be 2 inches. So what you could do is you could go ahead and you could do some math and be like, all right, the distance from here to here, and then the distance from here to here, blah, blah, blah. So basically you'd be getting diagonals, right? Like the diagonal from this grommet to this grommet, and then multiply that by how many you have, and then multiply it by 2 since you got the lacing going the other way. And then you add the extra for the tying, right? There you go, calculation done. However, most corsets, they'll have about 6 feet. That's pretty normal, of like 6 feet of lacing, or twice that, 12 feet. More than that is pretty excessive. But that's like a general rule. So for this guy, what I'm going to do is say, okay, how much do I need to make a bow and have some extra? Probably about that much, right? There, I've got my measurement. This is probably about 18 inches. A little bit longer, probably more like 21, 22, right? So I have that length. Now I know, all right, I've got to go in between this. Now I can go to this guy. Now I can go to this one. Now I can go to this one. And then probably like space in between, right? And we'll go halfway. And I'll multiply that amount by 2. So now I don't want to get my bow into the extra. So about there. So that's my length. Yeah? Cool. Need scissors. Just cause. Now, to keep with the colors, I have my Aglets. And I just bought a ton more, so I think I already put them in here, so I think they're anyway. But there we got these like blackish ones. You've got silver, and then you've got gold. I'm gonna do gold because that's what goes with my theme. So I'm gonna stick with that. Now here's what's really important. These have this shape to it, right? They're U-shaped. So we have this U shape. If you put the U shape in like this, you're gonna get it stuck. So don't try to do this. U. Yeah, so the U. So you don't want it to fit in exactly, because if you do that, you close it, and then as you close it, this part of the thing will get stuck on that. So that's a great way to get this stuck real fast. So don't do that. So what you do is you slide this guy into here, and you put it in the opposite way, right? So like the hard edge, the bottom of the U, is going to press up against this guy. That's the appropriate way to put it in. So I'm going to slide it all the way in, and that's where you can just clamp it. Good, good. And now what you do is then you turn it the other way, and then you can clamp it again. And I can turn this around a few times depending on how curled I want it to be. Like if I want it to be more curved, I'm going to throw it around a few times, and I get something looking like that. Yay! Aglet! And it's not going to come off. Right? That's stuck. Good. And then you do that again. Yay!
So there we have it. Sorry, this was impromptu. It's because a student actually missed class, and so I was like, well, we'll record it real fast, and then here I am posting it for you guys too. So, little impromptu, so sorry the quality is not as ideal as it could have been, but you know what? Hope you learned something, hope you had fun, and I'll see you later. Bye!